If you wanted 60 feet of anchor chain, you'd go get some guy. He'd measure it out like 3 foot at a time. Then he'd wrap 50 pounds of anchor chain around his arm, and then he'd give you a little tag because he'd tell you how many feet it was and how much it was a foot. And after about 40 minutes, he'd hand it to you, and then you'd go walk and pay for it, but you would never give him a tip. Never. No tip for that guy. But you go to Starbucks, you pay $11 for a regular coffee, that bitch gets a tip. And everyone gets a tip. But this guy never gets a tip. Now, what is harder? Dropping off a glass of wine at a restaurant, giving you a haircut, driving you 5 blocks down because you're too drunk to operate your own vehicle. It's all tip. Everything is tip now. I go pick up Thai food. I got to tip the bitch 15%. But you cut 100 feet of anchor chain, nothing. All right, wood. All right, this is kiln dried stuff. I don't think it's recommended for framing. It's a lot lighter. This is Doug fir. This is Doug fir 2x6s. These are Doug fir 4x4s. It just goes all the way down the line. This is what you call dimensional lumber. Dimensional lumber is just lumber that's made from a tree versus engineered lumber. Engineered lumber is like a hot dog, and dimensional lumber is like steak, if you want to get a food-based analogy. So this is redwood. So this is, has an exterior application. You wouldn't use redwood to frame, but you'd use it if you're building a deck or doing something outside. So this is all redwood stuff. This is all decking, and then this is pressure treated stuff. So this stuff is, weather resistant, it doesn't rot, and termites don't like it, and things like that. It's called pressure treated lumber. So when you're framing your house and you're building the wall and you're putting the wall, you're framing the wall and you're putting it on the mud sill or the slab or whatever you form the footing, you use pressure for the bottom plate, it's called. Then you come up with the studs. That's Doug fir. Everything above it is Doug fir. But if you're gonna touch concrete, pressure treat it. So anything that's exterior or going to be in contact with cement or concrete, use pressure treated, or you can use redwood, which is probably more money. It was funny. I was doing some work at my place in Malibu. So I went to the lumber store, Malibu Lumber, right? And I needed like a 2x4 pressure treated, right? And I was gonna do something in my garage and it was gonna put on concrete. So I said, I need a pressure treated stuff. So I went in, I just bought a 2x4, 8-foot 2x4 pressure treated. The guy says to me, now we can't cut that. And I go, why not? Because it's Malibu and people don't drive dually Ford pickup trucks. They drive Range Rovers and stuff. So a lot of time people pick up something and they'll just cut it for them and throw it in the back of the car or whatever, because they're not framing. They're doing like little projects and they can't get an 8-footer home, So the guy goes, we can't cut that in the back. We're in the Malibu, outdoors. The saw's outside. I go, okay, yeah, I don't need a cut. I got a truck, but why can't you cut it? He goes, well, it's pressure treated. It's got chemicals, California, City of Malibu, EPA. 2 weeks later, whole fucking place burns to the fucking ground. The whole place, everything. Every futon, every mattress, every Range Rover, every house with pressure treated lumber, all burnt, all in the ocean. But 3 weeks earlier, we cannot endanger the porpoises by someone using a radial arm saw and cutting a piece of pressure treated lumber in half, which, by the way, in any other state, there is no law. This is 1x6 dog-eared fencing. I build a ton redwood fencing. They probably have cedar too. This is probably cedar. That's redwood. It must have cedar. This must be cedar. Cedar. It's cheaper. It's 6 foot. So when you build a fence, you use 6 foot 1x6 dog-eared cedar. And I built 1,000 miles of this after the '94 earthquake because everyone's block walls fell over. And then when a fence replaced, here comes the Ace Man with the cedar. Pressure treated 4x4, pressure treated 2x6s, pressure treated 2x12s, 2x12s pressure treated, 2x4s. This is all for doing fencing and decks, and 4x6. This is like for building decks. Number 4 rebar. It's a panel saw. You can rip stuff that way and then flip it and cross cut it that way. This birch panel. This is like for building cabinets and stuff. This is particle board, 3/4. This is oak. Oak, 3/4, shop grade oak. Nice. You ripped up a lot of this stuff. This is what you would use, rip it up on a contractor saw and make cabinets out of it. Huh, it's a T&G. I didn't know about that. That's particle board, MDF. This is more birch ply. This is probably T111 siding. So if you're white trash and you're building a house and you don't want to deal with the stucco and you want to live in a house but have everyone think you're in a double wide trailer, you use this siding or this siding. My grandparents had it up at their house. This is like just like a nice shop grade ply, not something you would stain, but like a paint grade. Paint grade is something you would paint. Stain grade is something you would stain. This is oriented strand board. This is like for shear wall. It's a rougher ply and a rougher OSB, and this is, like I said, like exterior stuff. These are J-bolts. So here's how you build a house. You form your footing around the house, and then you have a slab or you have a raised foundation, but you have a footing that goes around the house. That footing is, that deep. When it's wet or before you pour it, you put J-bolts in. Usually 2 foot on center or something like every other bay. This much sticks out over the concrete. The rest of it is buried in the concrete. That's called a J-bolt. Then when you frame it, you drill holes in your treated lumber, drop it on top, put a washer and a bolt on it. When you see houses where you go, remember when we toured the fires and you'd see these nubs like sticking out, that's a J-bolt. That's what's in the concrete footing is a J-bolt. Then you got these cut. These are like dowels used for doweling rebar. More thinner J-bolt action and more cut up stuff and dowels. By the way, metal stud. A lot of people don't want to use metal stud because they're reluctant. This is a metal stud 2x4, but let me tell you something. First things first. You go look at a lot of those studs over there, they're bent like airplane propellers from World War I. This is straight and true. This is perfectly straight. You can't get a tree to be this straight. And so when you're framing the wall and you look down a wall, it can be a little wobbly if you're using an old style dimensional 2x4. Also, this stuff is all punched out in advance, right? So you want to run electrical, you want to run coaxial, you want to run plumbing. It's already punched out. You can run your VX, which is electrical stuff, or Romex, and you can just run. You got to picture this. You frame a whole wall, 20 feet long, and it's 2x4, 16 on center. And now it's time to do the electrical and the plumbing. You get a big fat auger bit and you just start, and it starts cracking and biting, and with a right angle 1/2-inch chuck drill. And it's like, this stuff's already punched out and it snaps together and people get intimidated by it. It's easy, you cut it with tin snips, bend it, snap it. I did my whole studio with this. So if you're in a situation and it's just an interior wall and it's non-load bearing, by the way, also loading up your truck, it's so much easier to load 50 of these than it is 50 2x4s. So everything about it is better. So don't be intimidated just because you're not used to working with metal stud. And not flammable. Thank you. Not flammable. Now remember, that's the stud. You're going to need a track. The track goes into the ground. Metal stud goes in. Tech screw has a little cutting tip on it. Little metal, sheet metal tech screw. Boom, right there. You just framed it. And the way you do this is you lay out your whole house. Snap lines. Snap blue lines. Put this thing down on it. Take a powder actuated pin driver or a concrete screw and just pop, pop, pop. Right down, then just pop your studs in and Bob's your uncle. This is epoxy for anchoring, so you want to retrofit your house for earthquakes, not been bolted to the foundation. You go down with a roto hammer, you drill through the bottom plate, you drill into the footing, you brush it out, you blow it out, you fill it with epoxy, and then you put a piece of all thread and you epoxy it in there. So it's like adding J-bolts 70 years later, because they didn't do the J-bolts back in the day. They just set it on top of the foundation. Let me tell you something, don't just buy the one that's on top, buy the one that's still in the shrink wrap. I bought what I thought was a Moen sink faucet like 3 years ago, but didn't have the shrink wrap on it, but it seemed fine. It didn't look, unmolested. And, brought it home. Didn't think much about it. I think I left it in the car overnight. And, next day, I'm gonna put the sink faucet in and pop the box open. Goddamn raccoon jumps out and attacks my daughter, okay? Hand of God, so make sure it's still in the shrink wrap. By the way, good to have a cheap box fan. People put the fan, like when they're doing stuff like demo in the house or busting up stuff or sanding drywall, they put the fan like to get the cool air in. No, put the fan, face it out. Put in the door, face it out, open a window and get the cross draft bringing this, so when you're sanding, the stuff's going out, not coming in. When you buy a toilet, don't just get any one that's in any box. You make sure it's taped shut when you buy it. Hand of God, I'm in here a couple years ago. We'll be back. I told you I like my Ford F-350 dually, long bed, crew cab. There's something that Ford and other car manufacturers do that drive me insane. It's the ergonomic thing, the lock and the unlock. Okay, first off, you wear off the 32nd of an inch of whiteout with your thumb over the years. So I don't know which one's locked and which one's unlocked. I just have to keep pushing it and trying it. I know these are first world problems, but first off, don't draw it in with a quill dipped in white gesso. Like, just put a star on one and nothing on the other side. Like, what they have is they have a padlock, and the other side has a padlock with 1/32 of a space underneath it, showing that the top of the padlock, which, by the way, padlocks don't even lean, they turn. But either way, you can see like a little bit of black underneath the padlock. So that's how you know. Listen, it's at night. You've been drinking. One side should just be a star, and then the other should just be blank. It shouldn't be like a hoop or zero or a cross or plus or minus. One side should just be plus and the other side should just be blank, and then you know that plus was lock or unlock. You can do it from your pocket. I don't drive the truck enough, so I have to stare at it. But also, why white paint on something your thumb is going to be rubbing for the next 15 years? And 65 to 70% of the padlock's exactly the same. It's the bottom. It's just this little wisp, this half hoop at the top. And I'm going to find a picture and slug it in right now, so you guys are as angry as I am. Dumbest design ever. And Ford did a third thing, which is insane, which is if you make a mistake and you hit unlock more than 3 times, the truck catches on fire. which is like, first off, the liability alone. I'm angry.